Trump administration demanding the deportation of yet another university student involved in pro-Palestinian protests.
Back in March, you noted that you had revoked some 300 student visas using the 1952 Immigration and Nationality Act.
Following an executive order signed by President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio invoked the McCarthy-era law to arrest and deport legal non-citizens for their speech. Hundreds of foreign-born students have since been arrested and had their legal statuses revoked for pro-Palestinian speech that Rubio calls a threat to U.S. foreign policy.
How many visas have you revoked?
I don't know the latest count, but we probably have more to do.
Can you give us an estimate?
Probably in the thousands.
The crackdown reignited a national debate over two words in the Constitution: persons and citizens.
What is promised to persons, those who are not citizens? What's promised them is life, liberty, and due process, not the civil rights in general.
You acknowledge the Supreme Court disagrees with you.
In August 2025, FIRE filed a lawsuit against Secretary Rubio, citing 5 other critical words in the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law.
Does it say somewhere that Marco Rubio gets to determine which speech is appropriate and revoke student visas based on what you think constitutes free speech?
There's a statute that says the Secretary of State gets to determine whether someone is a threat. We deny visas every day all over the world.
Do you think that the Immigration and Nationality Act trumps the Constitution of the United States, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Congress can always change the law if you want, but I'm telling you,
Mr.
while I
Secretary,
have the authority, I will
clear.
continue to revoke the visas of these people.
Her name is Rumeysa Ozturk. Last year, she co-authored an op-ed in the school's newspaper criticizing Tufts' response to the pro-Palestinian movement.
Secretary Rubio, I'm talking about this particular case where you revoked the student visa of a Turkish citizen who was a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that you didn't like.
Today, we're talking with 3 thought leaders of the American free speech movement to explore why the First Amendment protects the free speech of non-citizens.
That's just un-American.
But you're also a green card holder. You're not a U.S. citizen. That's something you're willing to fight for.
Yeah, of course.
These are the exact same things you heard during the McCarthy era, where people didn't want to join certain associations, where they didn't want to speak out. It was the silent generation.
And we are stuck here.
The impetus for it is this idea that you, someone from overseas, is coming here, as you were saying, and you're creating a problem for us.
I think that's where that idea comes from. And I want to steelman it because I believe in free speech, and I think that there's a good argument against it.
This is 1AX, Immigration.
He got a golden ticket into the United States of America. We gave him a student visa. He got into one of our most prestigious universities. We let him study alongside American kids who were the next generation of leadership. And what did he do? He decided to join up with this group that is, without a question, pro-Hamas.
Marco Rubio is planning and attempting to deport the student Mohammed Khalil. Like, think about this for a minute, y'all. If he was an American citizen, he could say whatever you want to say. But when you got a student visa to come to our country to study, and you're conjuring up anti-American rhetoric, we should just put you to death. Why are we even playing? Go home or we put you to death.
Yeah, so let's just start from the basic premise that free speech is a human right, that it can't be denied to someone because we don't like who they are or what they have to say. That is the premise of the United States. That is what was stated in the Declaration of Independence that helped to create this country, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, and the governments are constituted among men to secure those rights. So rights come first, governments come later. Rights do not come from government.
If you're going to look at the reasons why people have been deported or attempted to be deported, they're relying on a provision of American law that gives the Secretary of State the ability to deport people on the basis that what they're saying is a threat to American foreign policy.
Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke a green card or a visa for individuals who serve or are adversarial to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States of America.
Which is leading to some really absurd results, like some individual undergrad or grad student is a threat to American foreign policy. No, I do not think so. But the the impetus for it is this idea that you, someone from overseas, is coming here, as you were saying, and you're creating a problem for us. Well, we're really good at doing that all on our own. It is not as if you bring in a small cohort of foreign students and you take what was a peaceful, tranquil atmosphere of national unity and just like thrown a bunch of cayenne pepper into it. That is not the way this works. In many ways, as far as the intensity of our fight, their voices, because they're so few, are marginal.
But the tactics employed are also, I think, intended to spread fear among people more broadly.
ICE is now demanding he surrender to be deported. Now, he's in the United States legally on a student visa. We actually spoke to him, and he said he saw this coming a couple months ago. He told our reporter, Ellie Reeve, that he's living in fear because of his views.
I think being a supporter of Hamas and coming into our universities and turning them upside down and being complicit in what are clearly crimes of vandalization, complicit in shutting down learning institutions.
He actually hasn't been charged with anything, and the Trump administration cannot seem to justify it other than comparing him and accusing him, frankly, of terrorism.
I think if he would have declared he's a terrorist, we would have never let him in.
And what did he engage in that constitutes terrorist activity?
I mean, Michelle, have you watched it on TV? It's pretty clear.
The person speaking to Michelle Martin is an attorney. I mean, I'm surprised that he did not have answers to those basic questions.
If an American citizen did what Mahmoud Khalil did, do you think that he should be able to go to jail under the First Amendment?
If he was occupying a building, yes.
No, put that aside, because we have to put that aside, because the government's not alleging that, right? So if all that's being alleged is an American...
He leafleted for Al-Aqsa flood.
Okay, an American citizen can do that, right?
Indeed.
And if Trump threw an American citizen in jail or said that you can't get a liquor license because you did that, something that's perfectly constitutional, would you call him out for First Amendment violations?
Yes.
So the only difference here is whether or not he's a resident alien or whether he's an American. That's really the only difference.
Absolutely.
I understand sort of maybe the nativist impulse behind that, sort of say, well, who the fuck are you, you ungrateful piece of shit, coming here and criticizing our ideas? But that's also America, right?
Well, we don't always have to admit everyone who wants to come into the United States. So there can probably be some decision making based on who someone is or where they come from or what they even believe before they come to the United States. But once they're in the United States, it's our laws, it's our jurisdiction, and our laws and our jurisdiction says that you have free speech rights here in this country.
We definitely have a Supreme Court case from 1945, I think, that says that non-citizens enjoy First Amendment rights. So if I was, if I said something racist, I could not be criminally prosecuted. The First Amendment would protect me against that. The question, I guess, is whether my immigration status could be affected by mere speech and me uttering certain things that are otherwise protected under the First Amendment. I think that's probably the best answer right now, is that it's an unsettled question.
Now, I think it's fundamentally un-American to then say, welcome to our country, now shut up. I just don't think that's in line with our values. Now, some people think, no, you're a guest in this country, and therefore you should stay quiet, just like you might if you're a guest in someone's home.
If you come into my home and put all kinds of crap on my couch, I'm going to kick you out of my house.
There's a difference between a country and someone's home. And indeed, you even have the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and I thought this question might come up, who went on a program recently and said that our number one priority is Americans. This is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. We don't want to see an American who happens to be living in London.
So we don't want to see an American who happens to be living in London or happens to be living in Europe post something online about American politics or any politics, and all of a sudden they're facing ramifications over there, or they're denied entry, and something happens, we're denying them into our country, or we're going to arrest them because they posted something.
That's exactly what we're doing here in the United States.
When you have as robust a free speech protection as you have in the U.S., making carve-outs for people who make a living here, if you're at a university, essentially your job is, right, to contribute to ideas. Right. And instead of saying, please come here and enrich our society, but also please don't say anything that whatever government is in power at any given time doesn't like, It just defeats the purpose of it, right?
This is a magnificent victory for the American people. America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate.
When it stands to reason to say that the Secretary of State is appointed by a president who was elected with a particular mandate.
The American people gave President Trump and Republicans in Congress a mandate to govern.
We won the national popular vote last November. We won a crushing victory in the Electoral College. We won majorities in the House and the Senate. We just passed the big, beautiful bill.
She lost 31 states. He swept the swing states, the blue states. Got 312 Electoral College votes. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse my language, that is an ass whipping.
And who cares?
How so?
Why does his mandate have anything to do with any human being's First Amendment rights?
Wouldn't he have the right to say, you know what, I think that most of the country believes what I believe, and I believe this,
No.
so I should... What?
No. The First Amendment exists to protect exactly against majoritarian tyranny. If the democratic process and the will of the majority of the people, or in this case, the will of 49.9% of the people, governed your liberty and governed your rights, the Bill of Rights never would have been added to the Constitution. If the founders believed that democracy alone was sufficient to protect the great promises of the Declaration of Independence that were endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if they believed the democratic process was sufficient to render those rights unalienable, they would have left those rights to the democratic process. They did not. They removed those rights from the democratic process and said, no president, no Congress has the authority to override my right to free speech, my right to free exercise of religion, my right to due process. Because they knew that you could not trust majorities in the same way that you cannot trust kings or queens.
The American Constitution is based on the very idea that you can have sharp and diverging viewpoints.
That's something you're willing to fight for?
Yeah, of course.
Is that worth the risk to you?
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'm not a dissident. I hope and think I won't have I won't be deported. I would be living in Denmark, which is not the worst country in the world. But, I have a colleague who's a Russian citizen. Imagine if you're, again, let's use Iran or some other country. The idea in the irony of the U.S. taking away visa or citizenship for someone from an authoritarian state because of them using their speech in a way that the government disapproves of. That's just un-American.
We need to be more sturdy in our beliefs and our values and recognize that these values aren't so brittle, aren't so fragile, that hearing people speak out against them means the whole system collapses. If that's the case, then I think we're in much greater trouble than having someone who might have a marginal or offensive opinion speaking on the town square or in the campus quad.